Chapter 1077. Not knowing why, these youths who usually looked lethargic and listless. But today they seemed especially high-spirited. Their footsteps were light and their youthful faces were brimming with youthful and confident smiles. Their crimson-colored robes made them look extremely domineering. Those who originally wanted to open their mouths to mock when they heard that devil-class students had arrived, all shut their mouths. They looked at these students in astonishment. How could devil-class students have such an aura? Just as they were in shock. Suddenly, a student who was walking in the middle of the students let out a soft, "ah." His calf instantly felt a sharp pain and his entire body fell forward. The devil-class students all lined up neatly and moved forward. With this fall, even the students in front were pushed forward a few steps. One by one. In a split second, the devil class, which was originally lined up neatly, fell all over the ground. Until the students at the back pushed Long Yunzhan and the rest who were walking in front, and were supported in time, barely managed to stabilize the few of them. This fall caused the onlookers who were originally shocked, to burst into laughter. Haha. Trash class is trash class. To think I was so shocked just now, I really thought they had been reborn. I'm dying of laughter. A bunch of trash still want to make a fool of themselves on stage. They can't even walk properly, hurry back to their mother's womb and be born again. Tisk don't say that. This bunch of trash have the guts to participate in the inter-class competition. This kind of spirit and courage is still worth learning. This is called spirit and courage? They're simply idiots. All sorts of discussions were going on, causing the student who fell to turn red in the face. He lowered his head, his eyes were already red. So sorry, I didn't do it on purpose. Long Yunzhan asked in a deep voice. What happened? I don't know, something seemed to have hit my leg, I couldn't stand properly. The student lowered his head guiltily, stretching out his hand to roll up his trousers. Indeed, on his calf, there was a lump of greenish-purple bruise. Obviously, someone had purposely wanted to see devil class make a fool of themselves, and used a hidden weapon to attack them. Long Yunzhan squinted his cold eyes, his vision followed the angle of the bruise and looked over. That direction was the direction of Intermediate Profound Class 2. The spectators in that direction were from other continents. Presumably, this hidden weapon should have been thrown over by Intermediate Profound Class 2. Long Yunzhan lowered his eyes. Is it affected? The student immediately shook his head. No. Long Yunzhan straightened up and returned to the front of the team. Symbol. The students quickly adjusted their positions and neatly followed behind Long Yunzhan, walking to their positions. It was as if nothing had happened at all. On the contrary, I feel that this time, devil class might be able to get a good ranking. Suddenly, one of the spectators voiced out a different opinion from the rest. It immediately attracted the attention of others. The one who spoke was none other than the representative of the Yuchi family, the second head of the Yuchi family. He was also one of the survivors from the Ling King tomb. Second leader Yuchi, you didn't drink today? How could the devil class get a good ranking? From what I see, this devil class will be eliminated in the first round of the preliminary competition today. Don't forget, devil class has the world group's vice group leader, Yiqing Luo. Yuchi's second master said it word by word. Chapter 1078. Vice leader of the world group. They were no strangers to this mercenary group. After the battle in the Ling King's tomb, the world mercenary group had become completely famous. Yiqing Luo's name had also become the topic of discussion among various powerhouses. Yiqing Luo was in the devil class. That was true. He might be able to get a good ranking by relying on Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo? It seems like I didn't see Yiqing Luo in devil class. Someone looked around, scanning all the devil class's students, but didn't see Yiqing Luo's figure at all. When the crowd heard this, they also started to look for Yiqing Luo. But he discovered that among the students in devil class, there was no sign of Yiqing Luo at all. Yiqing Luo was actually not around. Yiqing Luo actually didn't participate in the competition? Second leader Yuchi, this is a class competition, not an individual battle. Even if Yiqing Luo is really as powerful as what you said, that's her problem alone. Look at that group of trash who can't even walk properly. Even if there were 10 Yiqing Luos, there's no way to change the fact that their class is filled with trash. Also, the students from the devil class yesterday, all of them were severely injured. Yes. I was at the scene and personally saw them being carried back to their dormitories. I'm afraid that they're forcing themselves to participate in today's competition. Tisk tise. I really don't know if these trash from devil class have something wrong with their brains, to force themselves to participate in the competition when they're seriously injured. I'm afraid this is the reason why Yiqing Luo doesn't dare to participate in the competition. Yiqing Luo doesn't have the face to take part in the competition, she doesn't even dare to appear. Haha. This is a wise choice. She's a young genius who's being talked about by all the big forces. She's the second overlord. If she loses here, won't she lose all her face? There were waves of sarcasm and ridicule. Second head Yuchi creased his brows as he shook his head in disbelief. Impossible. How could Yiqing Luo not be participating in the competition? It was because Yiqing Luo was going to take part in the competition that the patriarch specially sent him over as Yuchi's representative. Otherwise, was there a need for him, the second-in-command, to come personally for a class competition? One had to know, Yiqing Luo had made a blood oath with Shangguan Liuli to win first place. If Yiqing Luo didn't participate in the competition, it was highly possible that the devil class would not even be able to enter the preliminary round, so how would they be able to win? And at this moment Shangguan Liuli, who was standing at the front row of Intermediate Profound Class 2, was also sizing up devil class's side. After confirming that he didn't see Yiqing Luo's figure, his eyes revealed a complacent smile. The Lord Protector really did not lie to her. As expected, Yiqing Luo would not take part in the competition. Then, devil class would definitely not be able to advance to the preliminary round. Facing everyone's questioning gazes, the students of the devil class did not change their expressions, as though they were already used to everyone's colored gazes. Their eyes were resolute, their backs straight, and they stood ramrod straight. In their minds were the words that Yiqing Luo said to them before she left. She said, "The mission I'm giving you is to straighten your chests and take back your self-respect. Tell the world that you are not trash." She said, "I don't want to be spurned and despised by those people anymore. I don't want others to call you trash and humiliate you. Then this is a battle for your dignity." She said, "For your dignity, for the honor of the devil class, and also for me. I believe that all of you, after going through the torturous training and difficult obstacles, you who have always stood here strong, are the best." Chapter 1079. Dong. The preliminary round's gong rang. Devil class's students stood up straighter than before. Pairs of bright eyes were filled with hope and unwavering luster. They looked towards Yun Xiang's direction, watching as he announced the first round's rules. The corners of his lips carried a confident smile. No one took a step back, and no one was disheartened. They would wait for Yiqing Luo to return to bring Yi Fengyu back safely. The crowd's hearts trembled. Those who were obviously still childish and had the reputation of waste had a spirited smile on their faces. No, to put it more accurately, that smile was hope. Time, rewinding back to 5 o'clock, it was about 6 o'clock in the morning. All the students were dressed in the uniform which Yiqing Luo had long prepared, as they did their morning exercises in the courtyard. Yiqing Luo pointed out each student's shortcomings and bad habits, one by one, teaching them how to avoid it. Just as she was saying that, she saw something like a black fog, like an arrow leaving the bow, attacking speedily. Yiqing Luo's reaction was swift as she pushed the students in front of her, and took a swift step backwards. But unexpectedly, that black fog seemed to have locked onto Yiqing Luo, as it charged towards her direction once again. Yiqing Luo then saw clearly that was a lump. A black fog which looked like a bird. Black bird. Yiqing Luo's mind suddenly surfaced the words which she overheard from Shangguan Liuli last night. This was the summoning item which the dark forces used, black bird. Yiqing Luo stopped her evasive footsteps, as she stretched out her hand towards that black bird-shaped fog. Indeed, that black bird landed in her palm. In a blink, it turned into a piece of white paper. Yiqing Luo opened it as she swept a glance at the contents as her expression sunk. "What's the matter?" Long Yunzhan noticed the change in Yiqing Luo's expression, as he walked over and took that letter. After taking a look, Long Yunzhan's icy cold eyes seemed to be covered with a layer of frost. He frowned. "You bring everyone to participate in the competition, I'll go. The dark forces have specially named me, they want me to go." Yiqing Luo's voice was calm without any emotions. "No way." Long Yunzhan directly rejected. "I don't agree to let you go alone." "What's going on?" Qiao Jin asked when he saw that the two of them were in a deadlock. Yiqing Luo looked at him calmly. Xiao Yu is in the hands of the dark forces, let me go look for them now. No. Qiao Jin had the same opinion as Long Yunzhan. The dark forces are sinister and cunning. They are full of tricks. You can't go. This was obviously a trap set by the dark forces. You still have to bring everyone to participate in the inter-class competition. If you go, what will happen to the devil class? Qiao Jin supported Yiqing Luo's shoulders with both hands. Tell me, where is Xiao Yu locked up? I'll go. Devil class has you guys, and I believe that even if I'm not around, you guys will still be able to successfully enter the semifinals. Yiqing Luo laughed softly. Moreover speaking, it's useless no matter which one of you goes. The dark forces' target is me. Qiao Jin and Long Yunzhan's faces were ashen as they exchanged glances. He did not want Yiqing Luo to take the risk. But he didn't know how to stop it. Qiao Jin scratched his head and looked around. Where's Dizun? Have any of you seen the Dizun? He left early in the morning. Perhaps the main courtyard needs him. Yiqing Luo woke up early in the morning and there was no sign of Zhou Xian beside her. Chapter 1080. I have no choice. Yiqing Luo knew that they were all concerned about her. However, the dark forces were using Yi Fingyu's life as a hostage. She had to compromise. Was this the reason why the dark forces kidnapped Yi Fengyu? Was it to force her to meet the dark forces alone so that she wouldn't be able to participate in the inter-class competition? Last night the Dark Protector had said that he wanted the devil class to be eliminated in the preliminary round. What did they do to Shangguan Liuli this time? Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she spoke in a serious tone. You don't have to worry about me. If there's really an accident, I have a way to protect my life. But you, during the competition, take note of Shangguan Liuli and the other students. Shangguan Liuli was not the only one who was attracted by the mysterious Yin Qi. There were also other students. In this other world, the strong were respected and strength was supreme. Every profound practitioner's thirst for power had already reached the point where they were willing to pay any price. Especially, the dark forces had long infiltrated the Heavenly Academy, turning the Heavenly Academy into a breeding ground for pure souls. Other than Shangguan Liuli, there must be many other students. In the end, they weren't able to change Yiqing Luo's mind and they knew that they had no way to stop her. She could only tell Zhou Xian about it after she saw him. Placing all their hopes on Zhou Xian, Yiqing Luo flipped over and leapt onto Shiju's back as Long Yunzhan called out to her. She looked back, her expression calm. However, in the depths of his eyes, there was a bottomless whirlpool. Long Yunzhan furrowed his brows and looked at her for a while before warning, no matter what happens, don't be impulsive. Right now, you can't be impulsive. During the competition period, students were not allowed to fight or kill each other in private. Just like the attack on the devil class, if it wasn't for the fact that the dark forces had taken away all the corpses of the students from the devil class would then be disqualified from the competition because they had killed someone. Yi Fengyu was in the hands of the dark forces. His life was safe. But it was inevitable that he would be injured. If Yiqing Luo were to act rashly and hurt someone. I know. Yiqing Luo replied indifferently. In the most inconspicuous abandoned temple in the Western continent. Behind the Buddha statue was a tunnel. At this moment, the Buddha statue seemed to be surrounded by a thin layer of transparent fluorescent light. It was the fluorescence of a barrier. At the bottom of the tunnel, a slender figure was hung on a wooden frame with her limbs spread wide open. His greenish-white uniform was extremely disheveled, and there were a few obvious bloodstains on it. There were also a few spots on his clothes that were stained with blood that had congealed and stuck to his body. The youth was in a sorry state. His breathing was extremely shallow and his vision was gradually blurring. He could faintly hear the voices of two women talking. He felt it was familiar, but he couldn't focus on identifying it. Just as he was about to lose consciousness, he heard the sound of something tearing through the air. A barbed whip landed ruthlessly on his body. The piercing pain caused the youth to scream out in pain. He sucked in a breath of cold air and regained his consciousness. Amidst the cold sweat, he saw a slender figure standing in front of him. The figure was petite and wore a black cloak. Under the dim light of the dungeon, it was impossible to see the person's face clearly. Does it hurt? Pain is the right thing to do. The woman's voice seemed to be filled with madness and intense resentment. The whip landed on his body again. Chapter 1081. Yi Fengyu groaned in pain as his ears buzzed incessantly. The woman's shrill screams pierced his brain. Scream. Scream louder. Scream more miserably. When that good sister of yours comes over, let her enjoy your performance. The woman whipped Yi Fengyu's body again. In her agitation, the cloak on her head slid down. A beautiful face was revealed, but its features were twisted and hideous. Yi Fengyu's eyes widened. The pain in his body was no match for the pain and shock in his heart. He opened his mouth wide and shouted incredulously, Fourth sister. This woman was none other than his fourth sister who had been missing for many days. Yi Qingling. Ever since Yi Qingling's profound jade heart was destroyed by Yi Qingluo and her meridians were broken, Yi Qingling was driven out of the Yi family and Three Springs City. He had never seen her again. It wasn't that Yi Fengyu didn't think of asking second brother to find the whereabouts of fourth sister. But second brother didn't say anything after hearing it. And he was just a child who wasn't pampered. He didn't have the ability to look for fourth sister. It's been a few months. He didn't expect to see his fourth sister again in such a situation. After Yi Qingling heard his flabbergasted tone, she laughed maniacally. Did you think that I had my profound jade heart destroyed, my meridians broken, and I've already become a waste? After being chased out of the Yi family, I wouldn't be able to continue living? Fourth sister, of course I'm happy that you're alive. Father and old ancestor will. Yi Fengyu hadn't finished his words when he was interrupted by Yi Qingling. Shut up. Don't mention those two old guys in front of me. As long as I have enough ability, I will destroy the Yi family. Destroy Three Springs sect. Just like now, I will destroy you. Yi Fengyu's eyes widened as the luster gradually dimmed. Obviously, the current Yi Qingling was already possessed. She had been completely engulfed by hatred. Right now, she only had one goal in her mind, and that was revenge. Yi Fengyu knew that no matter what he said, it would be in vain. The most important thing now was to think of a way to leave this place, or to stop his sister from coming here. Yi Qingling's hatred towards her sister had reached a state of madness. He could not let his sister fall into danger because of him. Following that, no matter how hard Yi Qingling's whip lashed, how ruthless, his body was in so much pain that he felt like he was going to suffocate in the next second. Yi Fengyu didn't make another sound. He had bitten his lower lip and the sweet blood was mixed in his mouth. Sure. Let's see how long you can be stubborn for. Yi Qingling roared. The target of the whip did not make a single sound. To Yi Qingling there was no spiritual pleasure at all. What she wanted to see, it was Yi Fengyu's fearful expression, and Yi Fengyu's unceasing begging for mercy. She wanted Yi Qingluo to witness with her own eyes how her beloved brother was tormented by her, living a life worse than death. Yi Qingling's eyes were filled with madness. The wantonly black aura in his eyes seemed to want to devour her. But she was totally unaware of it. She soaked the long whip in the salt water and immediately pulled it out. The splashing salt water dripped onto Yi Fengyu. Yi Fengyu sucked in a breath of cold air and restrained himself for a long time before he cried out. Chapter 1082. Endure it. I'd like to see how long you can endure. Yi Qingling laughed crazily. Her facial features were hideous, extremely terrifying. An indifferent and sweet voice came from the darkness of the dungeon. Yi Fengyu seemed to see the entrance of the tunnel. A slender figure stood against the light. He couldn't see clearly, only heard the voice again. Don't play him to death. If he dies, there will be no tool to restrain Yi Qingluo. Yi Qingling loosened her fingers and gradually came back to her senses. She took a few steps back and smiled at the person behind her. Fortunately, Sister Protector reminded me. I will pay attention. Out of nowhere, Yi Qingling fished out a sharp dagger and pressed it against his face. I can't kill you, but I didn't say I can't make you wish you were dead. She laughed a few times and gently moved the dagger. The sharp dagger grazed his skin. Immediately, a thin piece of skin was cut off. Blood gushed out and soaked the dagger. Yi Fengyu was in so much pain that he sucked in cold air, breathing heavily. Yi Qingling laughed crazily. The black gas in her pupils reflected the blood on his body. She licked her red lips. He raised his dagger again and slashed at Yi Fengyu's body. I want to peel off your skin layer by layer. Let Yi Qingluo see brother dressed in blood. The words stopped at the tip of his tongue. That sinister smile froze on his face for a moment. Ling er. The person standing at the entrance of the tunnel frowned and called out in a low voice. But there was no response from Yi Qingling. She immediately stood up and walked quickly towards her brother. Her whole person was stunned on the spot. Only to see, a red figure stood between Yi Qingling and Yi Fengyu. That crimson-red dress, under the dim light of the fire, looked like rippling blood. It was extremely glaring, like a bloodthirsty Azura from hell, stepping on blood light. That beautiful face that could topple a city was expressionless. Her long and narrow eyes were like an iceberg frosted over. Just staring at her lightly made her feel like she was frozen, unable to move. Yi Qingluo. The person in front of her was Yi Qingluo. When did she come in? Yi Qingling was also dumbfounded. Sister Protector, aren't you guarding the entrance? How did you? That person shook his head, also extremely terrified. Now there was actually someone who had entered the tunnel right under her nose. However, she was completely unaware of it. Yi Qingluo. How much had she grown? Too scary. Yi Qingluo's long and narrow eyes were suffused with a cold glint. She didn't pay attention to the two of them. Instead, she turned around and looked at Yi Fengyu, who was covered in blood and had been tortured to the point that he didn't even look human. The whirlpools in her eyes suddenly became like a tornado. She raised her finger, took out a pill and stuffed it into his mouth. Her fingers quickly knocked on his body a few times. Xiaoyu, don't be afraid. Big sister is here. Her voice was warm and sweet. It was as gentle as a warm breeze, entering Yi Fengyu's heart. He wasn't sure if it was the effect of the medicine or Yi Qingluo's arrival. Yi Fengyu only felt that the pain in his body instantly disappeared wherever the warm current passed through. His consciousness had also become much clearer. When he opened his eyes, he saw the smiling face in front of him. She smiled, and her relief was mixed with comfort. Yi Fengyu nodded, the luster in his eyes was firm. Chapter 1083. Yi Qingluo, you actually came. Yi Qingling quickly returned to the woman's back, looking at Yi Qingluo with fear and excitement. She had not expected that Yi Qingluo would actually give up on the interclass competition, which was a matter of life and death for her brother Fengyu, even though she knew it was a trap. What a deep sibling relationship. Unfortunately, Yi Qingluo's sibling relationship was deep. In her eyes, it would only remind her of the time when Yi Qingluo turned her into a cripple without any scruples. The black gas in Yi Qingling's eyes became more and more intense. The hatred in her heart had been completely swallowed by the profound yin qi. Yi Qingluo naturally noticed this point. But she didn't take it to heart. Whether Yi Qingling was going to become food for the profound yin qi or not. Today Yi Qingling must die here. You touched my brother, I naturally have to come and collect your corpse. Yi Qingluo slowly turned around and stared at the two women in black robes in front of her. Her pink lips raised slightly, revealing a bloodthirsty sneer, full of murderous intent. You. Yi Qingling was frightened by that smile, trembling and stuttering. Want to kill us? You don't have this ability. Guardian sister. Let's do it. Guardian sister. Yi Qingluo raised her eyebrows, her cold smile bloomed like a poppy. The terrifying storm in her eyes seemed to be sucking people into her vortex. Not only Yi Qingling's throat tightened. That woman also couldn't stop trembling at this time. Yi Qingluo's gaze was filled with ridicule as she slowly walked towards them. With every step she took, the aura on her body was released. The violent and majestic energy made her blood-red dress flutter. Her long hair bared and brandished her claws. Yi Qingqian, you hate the Yi family so much that you even want to abandon your own name? Yi Qingluo laughed out lowly. That burst after burst of laughter like a cold hand. Ruthlessly piercing one's heart. That woman in a cloak. Other than Yi Qingqian, who else could it be? Yi Qingluo sneered. Her eyes were filled with murderous intent. Her palm moved and the glower flame fan was already in her hands. She couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with these two. Yi Qingling had completely touched her reverse scale. She couldn't bear to see her younger brother get hurt. How dare Yi Qingling hurt him like this? And the students of the devil class, her companions. Did Yi Qingling really think that with Yi Qingqian and the dark forces as her backing she could be unbridled? The rage in Yi Qingluo's eyes surged and her profound qi suddenly broke out of her body. The powerful energy seemed to have solidified the surrounding air. The unfurled devouring flame fan rotated in the center of his palm. Like a ball of raging flames, it suddenly blossomed and burned. It turned into a fire dragon baring its fangs and brandishing its claws as it charged towards the two of them. Yi Fengyu's injuries wouldn't last long. Moreover, this was the territory of the Dark World. He had to end the battle quickly. Yi Qingqian widened her beautiful eyes in shock. Under this powerful aura, they didn't even have the strength to move. Seeing that the fire dragon was about to attack, Yi Qingqian's eyes sunk as she pursed her lips tightly. She mustered all her strength and flipped her palm. A cloud of black mist shot out from the palm of his hand. That mist turned into the shape of a black bird as it suddenly shot up to the horizon. More than a dozen black-robed Dharma protectors of the dark forces rushed out from all directions of the tunnel. Without a second word, they directly attacked towards Yi Qingluo's direction. Chapter 1084. Yi Qingluo's eyes turned cold as her lips curled into a faint smile. Long and narrow eyes, curved eyebrows. Like she was smiling. But the emotions on that face made one's heart tremble inexplicably. More than 10 black-robed protectors swarmed over. A few streaks of black chi flashed past. The fire dragon created by Yi Qingluo's feather fan was completely defeated. The flames were consumed in mid-air. Following that, those black-robed protectors burst out a dense profound yin chi. Their entire bodies seemed to be shrouded in black smoke. Sister. Yi Fengyu was stunned as he looked at these black smoke-curling people in front of him in astonishment. These people. Were they still human? Yi Qingluo threw the glower flame fan in her hand into mid-air. Just as the glower flame fan was about to fall, her feet stepped on the ground and her figure was light as she leapt into mid-air. She stretched out her hand and firmly held the fan handle. At the same time, when that feather fan opened up, a terrifying aura swept out, accompanied by a sharp piercing explosion. An enchanting red light shot out from that opened glower flame fan. Bang, bang, bang. A few explosions rang through the air and soon after the black smoke-like gas was covered by the red light. Ah! A few screams were heard as those black-robed protectors who attacked in mid-air were injured by this burst of chi. They directly fell from mid-air and fell to the ground. There were a few who reacted quickly and avoided that burst of chi at the same time when the black chi was defeated. Yi Qingluo did not give them any breathing space. A cold glint flashed in her eyes as her figure quickly spread out. Her footwork was strange. But in the blink of an eye, she had already moved close to the back of one of the black-robed protectors. The glower flame fan in her hand flashed a red light. Without a sound, it cut that black-robed protector's neck. Fresh blood gushed out. Yi Qingluo's figure, like a ghost, disappeared from everyone's line of sight. The black-robed protectors immediately focused and keenly sensed Yi Qingluo's existence. They couldn't believe it. Yi Qingluo's speed was actually so fast. Even they could not catch any traces of Yi Qingluo's figure. Didn't the Saint Law say that Yi Qingluo was just a young girl who had just advanced to Earth profound 4th grade? How could he possess such godly speed? Be careful. This slut has a set of footwork that no one can break. Yi Qingqian immediately warned. As he spoke, he heard the sound of a heavy object falling to the ground. Not far from the black-robed protector whose neck had been slit by Yi Qingluo, another black-robed protector had also fallen to the ground without any signs of life. However, none of them had sensed Yi Qingluo's presence. It was as if Yi Qingluo had already turned invisible, as though she was one with the air. The dozen or so black-robed protectors were shocked. Damn it! Why didn't you tell me about this earlier? Unbreakable footwork? If we can't find her, how can we subdue her? The few black-robed guardians' hearts were palpitating with fear, deeply afraid that Yi Qingluo would appear behind them and silently take away their lives, so they couldn't help but grumble. Yi Qingqian remained silent for a moment and suddenly thought of something. Her gaze was like a sharp blade as she shot straight towards Yi Fengyu, who was tied to the rack. Catch Yi Fengyu. As long as Yi Fengyu is in our hands, she will have to obediently show herself. A way to restrain Yi Qingluo's strange footwork. The Saint Law didn't tell her. Now they could only make use of Yi Fengyu to force Yi Qingluo to show herself. Otherwise, let Yi Qingluo use this method to sneak and attack. Chapter 1085. When the few black-robed guardians heard that, they immediately reacted. The few of them flew swiftly towards the direction of the shelf. One of them opened his fingers and turned it into an eagle's claw, heading straight for Yi Fengyu's head. But unexpectedly, that young man who was originally tied tightly on the shelf was covered in blood and was in a semi-conscious state. He suddenly opened his eyes. That pair of clear eyes, there wasn't a hint of haziness in them. There was only a biting cold murderous intent. Yi Fengyu's limbs swiftly pulled out his hands from the long untied iron chain. His palm moved and profound qi broke out of his body. He directly slapped the face of the defenseless black-robed protector, who was at the forefront of the charge. Profound qi exploded downwards. The black-robed protector was immediately sent flying by the explosion. His entire head exploded. Yi Fengyu's breathing was hurried as he withdrew his hand, trembling non-stop. After this action he was shocked to realize that his entire body was trembling because of fear. The first time he killed someone. The first time he killed someone in such a brutal way. To a young man whose temperament was still immature, it indeed made him panic. But Yi Fengyu didn't feel any regret. Yi Qingluo knew that it was dangerous, but she resolutely chose to come to the Dark Forces territory to save him. He absolutely could not let himself become Yi Qingluo's burden. After killing one person, Yi Fengyu had not regained his senses. The other black-robed guardians charged towards Yi Fengyu with an extremely ugly expression. Just at this moment, a sweet voice was heard, neither fast nor slow, word by word. That voice was filled with an enchanting charm, but it made one shiver. Ah! A panicked cry was heard, accompanied by Yi Qingluo's bell-like laughter. Those few black-robed guardians' actions immediately stiffened. Guardian who? The black-robed guardian shouted anxiously, Yi Qingluo, what are you trying to do? If you dare to hurt Guardian Hu, your little life will not be guaranteed. The few stiff black-robed guardians turned their heads in unison. They saw a blazing figure standing against the light at the entrance of the tunnel. Her 5 fingers locked onto Yi Qingqian's neck. A cold and bloodthirsty sneer hung on her face. Protector Hu? Yi Qingluo narrowed her eyes as she took a look at the pale-faced young lady. You're indeed bewitching, but what shocked me is that you've only joined the Dark Forces for such a short period of time, and you actually have so many trusted aides who are willing to be used by you. Yi Qingluo guessed that Yi Qingjian should have joined the Dark Forces, becoming a guardian or elder of the Dark Forces. He just didn't expect it. Not only had Yi Qingqian become a guardian, it seemed like she had absolute prestige in front of the other guardians. Yi Qingluo, you dare to touch me, try and see. Yi Qingqian's face was pale as she spoke harshly. Yi Qingluo raised her brows and laughed lowly. I'm just giving you a taste of your own medicine. Didn't you want to use Xiaoyu to threaten me? So, I will use you to threaten the Dark Forces. Yi Qingqian's influence on the Dark Forces was so huge, which was something which Yi Qingluo had not expected. Since she had detected this, Yi Qingluo would naturally make use of it. She curled her lips and glanced at something out of the corner of her eyes. Then he nodded his head in a barely audible manner. Yi Qingqian was the closest and noticed Yi Qingluo's little action. Her expression suddenly turned serious. She shouted at those black-robed protectors who were looking at her in fear. Quick! Stop Yi Fengyu. You cannot let him leave. Chapter 1086. Yi Qingqian had just opened her mouth. A huge leopard with shiny black fur was behind them, as fast as lightning as it sped towards the entrance of the underground tunnel. On top of that leopard sat a young man who was covered in blood. Enchantment. Quickly close the enchantment. Yi Qingqian's eyes were scarlet red as she commanded sternly. She knew very well that once Yi Fengyu, who was a threat to Yi Qingluo, escaped the dungeon, they had no tools to restrict Yi Qingluo. If Yi Qingluo summoned a divine dragon or a sacred beast for protection, they had no way to leave the underground tunnel alive. The situation that was supposed to be a sure win would be reversed. She was too careless, too overconfident. She had forgotten to close the enchantment after those black-robed guardians entered the underground tunnel. Yi Qingluo's fingers suddenly clenched tightly, causing Yi Qingqian to suffocate, unable to make a single sound. Hearing Yi Qingqian's voice stopped abruptly. These black-robed guardians' attention was slightly diverted towards Yi Qingqian. To them, protecting Yi Qingqian was the most important thing. If anything happened to Yi Qingqian, none of them could escape. It was this moment of distraction. Shiju had already brought Yi Fengyu and escaped the moment the enchantment closed. Stupid idiot. Yi Qingqian was so angry that her entire body was trembling. Her hoarse throat spat out 2 words with difficulty. but the strength of the grip on her neck made her unable to speak at all. Yiqing Luo lowered her eyes, gazing at Xian, whose face was flushed red from holding her breath, her beautiful eyes filled with hatred and viciousness. Her lips curled into a cold arc. Xian now. Let's calculate. How should I help Xiaoyu to get back the injuries he had suffered? Xian's eyes were filled with fear. She wanted to struggle but she couldn't muster up any strength. Her eyes widened as she refused to admit defeat. Yiqing Luo. Yifeng Yu's injuries were all caused by you. And Devil Class. Those useless things, it's all because of you that they suffered such treatment. Yiqing Luo's gaze was as cold as ice, her smile froze. Her slender fingers mercilessly pinched hard. The sudden strength made Xian's throat tighten as she coughed violently. Not long after, that delicate face gradually flushed red and turned purple. Protector Hu. Yiqing Luo. You'd better release Guardian Hu immediately. Otherwise, don't even think of leaving this place alive. The expressions of the other black-robed protectors changed drastically, and they were as anxious as ants on a hot pan. Yiqing Luo, on the other hand, stopped increasing her strength as she slowly raised her eyes and gazed at those restless black-robed guardians as her lips curled into a sweet smile. Don't tell me that if I let her go, I will be able to leave here alive? Hearing this, the black-robed protector was overjoyed and immediately nodded. Yes. As long as you release Guardian Hu, you can leave this place. You think I'm naive? Yiqing Luo's smile became even more enchanting. Her slender fingers gently caressed the neck of Xian, who was on the verge of fainting. If I let her go, I really won't be able to leave. What do you want? The black-robed protector looked nervously at the still-breathing Xian and softened his tone to discuss the deal with her. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she felt increasingly curious. What capabilities did Xian have? In a short period of time he had gained such a high position in the Dark Forces. The Dark Organization did not limit the number of Guardian Elders. Chapter 1087. Among those Guardians or Elders, everyone had the same status. Then, how could Xian make so many Guardians so nervous? Yiqing Luo pondered for a moment and slowly dragged the suffocating and limp Xian directly towards the entrance of the tunnel. She curled her lips and said coldly, "Open the enchantment." The black-robed protectors looked at each other, then at each other. But no one moved an inch. Yiqing Luo laughed. "You don't even dare to open the enchantment. How can you talk about letting me go? You people from the Dark Forces really can't believe what you say." After that, she shook her head helplessly. "Then, before I die, I will torture her to death first." "No. Let's open the enchantment. Let's open." The black-robed guardian immediately opened his mouth to stop her. One of the black-robed guardians immediately headed towards the direction of the entrance. From time to time he turned his head and looked at Yiqing Luo, paying attention to whether she was playing any tricks. The black-robed guardian had just walked to the entrance when Yiqing Ling, who was shivering at the side, suddenly shouted, "Don't open the enchantment. If she leaves the tunnel, all of us will die." The black-robed guardian paused and looked at Yiqing Ling, his voice hoarse. "Nothing must happen to Guardian Hu. Without her there's still me, isn't it? I can be the Guardian Hu. Just by sacrificing herself she can subdue Yiqing Luo. Then she can complete the task which his lordship has entrusted to her." Yiqing Ling pursed her red lips tightly. She didn't want to let Yiqing Luo go. She wanted to see Yiqing Luo walking towards death. How could she be willing to let Yiqing Luo leave so easily? Even if Xian died, so what? She had already joined the Dark Forces. Why not replace Xian to become the second Guardian Hu? Moreover, do you think Yiqing Luo, this little slut, will really comply with your deal? Don't forget, none of you can break that strange footwork of hers. Even my sister, she can't see through Yiqing Luo's footwork. Moreover, once you really open the enchantment, she will definitely kill my sister directly and then use her footwork to leave the tunnel. Even if you want to chase after her, I'm afraid you don't have this ability." Yiqing Ling's words were extremely reasonable. The black-robed protector also began to hesitate. Yiqing Jian, who had not completely fainted, felt a chill in her heart. She didn't expect that her younger sister would actually want to replace her current position. It was rare for her to have a close sisterly relationship. However, he didn't expect that this so-called deep love was just mutual exploitation. Yiqing Luo seemed to have sensed Yiqing Qian's self-deprecation. She lowered her eyes, which were deep and dark and contained a terrifying storm. She stared at Xianxia for a long while before her lips curled up in disdain and her voice was cold. People like you never know how to give your heart to others, so how can you talk about true feelings? Her voice paused for a moment before she continued. People like you will never be able to have true feelings. Xianxia's breathing gradually slowed down as her complexion turned from purplish-green back to pale white. She panted heavily as her beautiful eyes stared venomously at Luo, saying word by word, "If you have the ability, kill me now. To be able to drag you along with me before I go to hell, I can die without regrets." Since when did eldest sister have such guts? Luo cried out in shock as she clicked her tongue and couldn't stop praising. Eldest sister has such backbone. If I don't fulfill eldest sister's wish, wouldn't that be disrespecting eldest sister? Chapter 1088. She chuckled, her eyes curved. What fourth sister did to little you earlier, I can use it. Her fingertips moved. A sharp dagger was drawn under the fan handle. Her pink lips curved slightly. The cold luster in her eyes seemed to be able to absorb everything in the world. The dagger moved lightly, grazing the skin on Xianxia's neck. A thin layer of skin was directly peeled off. Xianxia cried out in pain, fresh blood gushed out. Fourth sister wants little you to taste the pain of peeling off his skin, then I will let eldest sister taste this pain first. Luo smiled charmingly. The expression on her face was calm and composed, as if peeling off her skin and pulling out her tendons was a normal thing. Xianxia kept howling in pain. The pain of her flesh being peeled off was simply unbearable. She struggled, trying to break free from Luo's torture. But the moment she moved, her body was grazed by the dagger, leaving streaks of blood marks. Finally, Xianxia could not bear the pain. Tears rolled down from the corner of her eyes, her voice was hoarse and trembling. Open the enchantment, open the enchantment. Luo flipped her palm. The bloody dagger became clean in an instant, shining with a dazzling luster. The dagger was kept back into the glower flame fan. She smiled, her eyes calm. You should have been obedient. Why are you so stubborn to suffer such torture? Those who don't know would think you like to suffer such treatment. Xianxia was trembling with anger. That black-robed protector walked to the entrance of the tunnel, listened to the command and was about to open the enchantment. At the same time, Luo's eyes flashed a gloomy sneer. In her heart she had already silently recited the teleportation chant, ready to bring Xianxia out of the enchantment. As long as she broke through this enchantment, the dark forces would not be able to trap her. Suddenly, the entire tunnel, the wind and clouds surged, the weather changed. A hurricane rose in the tunnel. The vast and majestic aura caused the entire tunnel to emit a rumbling sound that shook the mountains and the earth. Luo suddenly felt an invisible pressure, making her somewhat breathless. Her eyes sunk, an ominous premonition surged from the bottom of her heart. Looking down, she saw Xianxia who was being dragged by her. A strange sneer appeared on the corner of her mouth. Her beautiful eyes were clear and blood-red. He laughed savagely and savagely. Your time has come. Luo had yet to react. She could only feel a surge of profound qi coming straight at her face. That strong, imposing manner made even Luo panicky. The last incantation of teleportation just happened to be spat out silently. Her figure flashed and disappeared in the blink of an eye. However, when she wanted to forcefully bring Xianxia away, she was restrained by an invisible force. Luo could only give up. When her figure appeared and stood in a corner of the tunnel, she raised her eyes and looked over. She saw that the place where she was standing just now had a huge crater. She had dodged in time just now. She was afraid that now the one who would be smashed to pieces would be her. Who could it be? It actually possessed such great power. Even from Dmo Xian's body she had never sensed such powerful energy. Lord Saint Technique. A few black-robed protectors respectfully called out in unison, then knelt down in the direction of the tunnel entrance. Saint Technique. One of the 4 great Saint Techniques under the King of Darkness? Luo frowned, followed their line of sight vigilantly and looked over. She saw a tall figure standing at the entrance of the tunnel. Chapter 1089. A black cloak covered his entire body. The black brocade clothes under the cloak were of high quality and were embroidered with strange totems with golden threads. The pair of eyes under the cloak were as cold as a poisonous snake, revealing an evil chill. Such a person, just by looking at his appearance, one could tell that he was not someone to be trifled with. A bunch of trash. An indifferent voice without any emotion. The holy technique's gaze swept past and saw the bodies of those black-robed protectors exploded. Instantly the entire tunnel was filled with flesh and blood. A strong smell of blood filled the air. Yiqing Luo's brows tightened. The tunnel was too narrow and she had tried her best to avoid the splattered flesh and blood. But there was still a small amount of flesh and blood that landed on her. Her brows tightened even more as she stared at that person vigilantly. This holy technique. It was different from the one she met outside the Ling Ling King's tomb. This holy technique was obviously crueler, more arrogant and more arrogant. He was extremely confident in himself. Take his act of directly killing these black-robed protectors as an example. It was enough to prove his confidence in himself. He was declaring war on Yiqing Luo. He didn't need these useless people who dragged him down to help. He alone was enough to deal with her. The dark forces were well aware of some of her abilities, such as the divine dragon and the white tiger. And this holy technique, knowing that she had the protection of the divine dragon and white tiger, was still so confident. Then there were only two answers. First, he didn't get the news from the dark forces and didn't know that she had the divine dragon and white tiger, so he dared to be so arrogant. Second, his ability was so strong that he didn't fear the existence of the divine dragon and white tiger. The current situation was afraid that it was the second answer. The relationship between the holy technique and Yiqing Qian was obviously not ordinary. If Yiqing Qian was around, it was impossible that the holy technique didn't know anything about her. Just when Yiqing Luo was extremely vigilant, the holy technique lowered his eyes and stared at the woman in his arms after killing the other black-robed protectors. Does it hurt? Yiqing Qian was drowsy and her beautiful eyes looked at the man who was hugging her as her lips curled into a relaxed smile. Yes. The Saint Law's gaze turned cold as his line of sight fell upon Yiqing Ling, who was curled up in the corner and retching incessantly. Yiqing Ling was stunned by his gaze and her delicate body trembled as she looked at the holy technique. You take care of her. His ice-cold voice carried a chilling aura. If there's even the slightest mistake, this holy technique will make you wish you were dead. Yiqing Ling shuddered as she walked towards them with weak legs. The minute they got close, the holy technique had already pressed Yiqing Qian's entire body onto her. Yiqing Ling barely managed to stabilize her body and carefully hugged Yiqing Qian as she half knelt on the ground. She placed Yiqing Qian on her body before she dared to look at the holy technique. Give her medicine. Saying that, he threw down a medicine bottle and directly walked towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Ling trembled as she clutched the bottle tightly. Looking at Yiqing Qian, who was lying on her lap, her face was filled with fear. She had been with the dark forces for almost 2 months. Naturally, he knew the status of the 4 great saint techniques in the dark forces. She had never expected this. His sister actually had such a close relationship with the holy technique. Just now when the holy technique looked at her, his gaze was cold and bone-chilling. It seemed that as long as he moved his eyelashes slightly, he could take away her life. Chapter 1090. Yiqing Qian gave a light harumph and didn't answer her question. Yiqing Ling was so scared that she started crying. Sister, I'm sorry. I was wrong just now. I was blinded by greed because I wanted to live on. Seeing that Yiqing Qian was still ignoring her, Yiqing Ling felt uneasy. Big sister, can you forgive me? I know I'm heartless and unscrupulous. I've forgotten my sister's kindness to me. She unscrewed the bottle and as she applied medicine for Yiqing Qian, she sobbed softly. It was Big Sister who gave Linger a second life. It was Big Sister who gave Linger a chance to live. Even if Linger were to go through fire and water for Big Sister, I would never be able to repay Big Sister's kindness. The cold ointment stopped the pain in his body. Yiqing Qian's consciousness had gradually recovered by more than half. She took a glance at the crying Yiqing Ling and hid away the disgust and ridicule in her eyes. Alright, I know your character very well. I hope you can remember what you have said. If there is a next time, don't blame me for not caring about our sisterly relationship. Yiqing Ling said lightly. Yiqing Ling's eyes lit up and she nodded happily. There will never be a next time. Initially, she thought that Yiqing Qian's position in the dark forces was based on her own ability. Thus, the idea of replacing him sprouted in his mind. But now, Yiqing Ling completely understood. The reason why the other guardians were so concerned about her was not because her life was more important than theirs. Instead, Yi Qingqian belonged to the sacred technique. Yi Qingjian didn't pay any more attention to Yi Qingling and immediately fixed her beautiful eyes in the direction of the holy technique, her eyes flowing with complacency and ruthlessness. As long as the holy wolf didn't abandon her, Yi Qingluo would definitely die today. You injured guardian who? Wolf Saint Technique's gaze fell onto Yi Qingluo, his gaze icy cold. Yi Qingluo was secretly speculating on the relationship between this holy technique and Yi Qingqian. This holy technique didn't seem to be because of the King of Darkness's mission, but for Yi Qingqian. Could it be that the kidnapping of Yi Fengyu and the attack on the devil class had nothing to do with the King of Darkness? But because of Yi Qingqian's request? That was also a possibility. Because what Yi Qingqian wanted to do the most, he would completely destroy her. He had destroyed everything for her and made her wish she was dead. Losing the devil class competition and seeing the little brother that he cared about die in front of his own eyes. This was definitely a heavy blow to her. Yi Qingqian had this idea? You're smart but too smart. The wolf sacred technique walked toward her slowly. Every step he took brought along a majestic and powerful wave of air. It forced Yi Qingluo to take a step back. Protector who is my partner. Since you hurt my woman you should pay the price. I'm sure you know the rules. Protector Lang smiled coldly. Looking at Yi Qingluo's flustered look he couldn't help but laughed. Yi Qingluo probed. Are you here on King of Darkness's orders, or to kill me to avenge her? Trying to get information out of me? Wolf Saint Technique sneered as he closed in on Yi Qingluo. He then bent over slightly, looking down at Yi Qingluo who was unable to escape because of his strong qi. But his next sentence still answered Yi Qingluo's question. Killing you not only is it to avenge Guardian Hu, it is also to complete his lord's orders. You're lying. Yi Qingluo narrowed her eyes, trying her best to ignore the extreme cold intent emitting from Wolf Saint Technique, restraining the trembling in her voice. Now she was almost completely sure. Wolf Saint Technique would definitely come. Chapter 1091. If by now Yi Qingluo still couldn't tell the relationship between Wolf Saint Dharma and Yi Qingqian, then her brain must have been really messed up. She had underestimated Yi Qingqian's charm. But Yi Qingqian should have her own skills towards men. Otherwise how would Yi Qingqian be able to quickly hook up with Leng Fengying after abandoning Leng Fenghua? Even if she and Leng Fengying were in a mutually beneficial relationship. But to be able to make Leng Fengying cooperate with her, that was Yi Qingqian's ability. She had not expected that after arriving at the Dark Forces, Yi Qingqian could still use her charm to hook up with Wolf Saint Dharma. No wonder those black-robed guardians were so worried that Yi Qingqian would be killed by her. If Yi Qingqian were to die, they would definitely suffer Wolf Saint Dharma's wrath. How can you tell that this Saint Dharma is lying? Wolf Saint Dharma's eyebrows curved in interest, as though he was interested in Yi Qingluo's words. This feeling to Yi Qingluo was extremely disgusting. Like he was teasing a pet. Yi Qingluo pursed her lips as her vision was fixed on Yi Qingqian, surveying the surroundings, searching for a chance to leave. While replying to him she tried to delay the time. If I die, King of Darkness's plan will come to nothing. She was the most important chess piece in King of Darkness's plan. If she died, even if he obtained the profound jade heart in her body, probably it wouldn't be of much use. So King of Darkness will not let you kill me. This was Yi Qingluo's judgment. Her life to King of Darkness still had some value. If Wolf Saint Dharma really killed her, then it would spoil King of Darkness's plan. Or could it be Wolf Saint Dharma was willing to sacrifice everything for Yi Qingqian? Are you threatening the Saint Dharma? The interest in Wolf Saint Dharma's tone was getting thicker. This last was interesting. Not only was she intelligent, her reaction was also extremely fast. With just a few words she was able to pinch the opponent's weakness. This kind of person, if she was allowed to continue living in this world. If she grew up, how terrifying would she be? Wolf Saint Dharma. Yi Qingqian, who had applied the ointment, had been paying attention to their situation. Now hearing Wolf Saint Dharma's interesting tone, his heart trembled. Her pretty face immediately paled, and her beautiful eyes stared unblinkingly at Lang Shengfa. She is very cunning. You must not be fooled. The wolf Shengfa glanced sideways at her worried face and chuckled. You're worried that I'll fall for her? Yiqing Jian didn't reply. She was indeed worried. Yiqing Luo could even capture the high and mighty overlord, not to mention this wolf saint technique which allowed her to seduce him so easily. You and her are different, the wolf saint Law said in a comforting tone. Following that, his gaze shifted back to Yiqing Luo. The more intelligent a person is, the person who will threaten this sacred technique usually won't live for long. His gaze made Yiqing Luo shudder. His body seemed to be frozen by frost, unable to move. Wolf Saint Technique suddenly stretched out his hand and pinched Yiqing Luo's lower jaw. He forced her to look into his eyes. The oppressive feeling from the Wolf Saint Technique made Yiqing Luo's body tremble uncontrollably. Even if she met a cultivator who was several profound grades higher than her, Yiqing Luo had never been afraid of anyone. But Wolf Saint Dharma made her develop such a feeling. Yes, she was afraid. Afraid of the Wolf Saint Technique's approach. Chapter 1092. I would like to see after I kill you, how will his lordship deal with me after his plan fails? The Wolf Saint Technique's palms slowly slid from her jaw to her slender neck. His cold and terrifying eyes were emitting a bloodthirsty murderous intent. He was avenging Yiqing Qian. To avenge her earlier by strangling Yiqing Qian's neck. Yiqing Luo held her breath. The strong pressure made her have no chance to resist. This Wolf Saint magic. He was at least a sky-profound cultivator. Only a supreme expert above the sky-profound realm would be able to give her such a strong pressure. A drop of cold sweat dripped down from her forehead. This drop of cold sweat fell into Wolf Saint Magic's eyes. It made the smile in his eyes even more bloodthirsty as it was filled with scarlet. His 5 fingers gradually tightened. Beside her ears she could still hear his low sneer. Everything that you have done to protect her, who I will make her pay for it one by one. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted. He wasn't joking. He really wanted to kill her. Could it be? He really didn't care about the King of Darkness's plan? Didn't the dark forces all serve the King of Darkness, obeying his every command? This Wolf Saint Magic and the King of Darkness. What was their relationship? She didn't have time to think about these questions. She absolutely could not lose her life here. The Devil class's students were still waiting for her to return. If Zhou Xian knew that she came to the Dark Forces territory alone, he would definitely be worried. His current identity was Supreme Mo. She couldn't let Zhou Xian's identity, which he had painstakingly built, be destroyed in her hands. Absolutely. He couldn't die. Her half-squinted eyes gradually surfaced a layer of determined luster. She bit her lower lip so hard that it started to bleed. The palm on his neck tightened its grip even more. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath and forced herself to hold on to her will as she opened her 5 fingers. A bolt of lightning-like current ran through her slender fingers, emitting a zzz sound of electricity. Wolf Saint Magic was stunned by this sound. He immediately loosened his grip and looked sideways at the direction of the lightning. Making use of this gap, Yiqing Luo lifted her leg and kicked fiercely towards Wolf Saint Magic's abdomen. The force was so strong that even the Saint Technique, who was as tall as a wolf, groaned in pain. His fingers dropped from Yiqing Luo's neck, whereas Yiqing Luo had already stepped on his chest as she flew up. His footwork moved quickly, and the flowing electric current in his hand suddenly formed an electric ball-shaped object. Thunderclap Technique. She flipped her palm and the electric ball directly smashed towards the Wolf Saint Technique. Because of Yiqing Luo's set of combat skills, she had defeated the Wolf Saint Technique, which was continuously retreating. He felt humiliated in his heart, and a strong profound qi broke out of his body and was about to attack Yiqing Luo. A bolt of lightning struck the top of his head. Zzz. The electric current exploded on the Wolf Holy Law's body. Rumble. Lightning flashed and thunder rolled. The electric current lingered on the Wolf Saint Law's body, constantly flowing with electricity. At the same time, Yiqing Luo swiftly summoned Chi-Chi and leaped onto Chi-Chi's back. Break through the enchantment and leave the tunnel. Chi-Chi let out a tiger roar and its tiger claws lashed out. The huge tiger body directly flew towards the entrance of the tunnel. Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Ling saw this and held Yiqing Qian's hand in panic. Sister. You can't let Yiqing Luo escape. She can't leave. Yiqing Qian didn't panic at all. On the contrary, her lips curled into a cold arc. Coming to the Dark Forces territory. Still want to leave so easily? Chapter 1093. At the entrance of the tunnel, a ray of white glow dispersed. A transparent barrier separated Chi-Chi from the rest. After Chi-Chi was knocked away, it swiftly opened up its tiger claws and slashed towards that white glow. However, when the white sharp tiger claws got close to that white glow, it still couldn't avoid the consequence of being sent flying again. Enchantment. The enchantment conjured by the dark forces. Even Chi-Chi, the sacred white tiger, was unable to break the enchantment. To take the opportunity to escape from the tunnel, it was probably impossible. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips and forced herself to calm down. She stopped Chi-Chi from ramming against the enchantment again. This enchantment, Chi-Chi was unable to break it. Forcefully ramming against it would instead cause Chi-Chi to get injured. Damn enchantment. Her understanding towards enchantment wasn't deep, and she could only rely on her own ability to conjure a protective enchantment. As for breaking the enchantment, she had no idea how to do it. How to break the enchantment and leave this place? Could it be that she had to wait for Zhou Xian to find out from the devil class students that she had gone to save Yi Fengyu alone and rush over to save her? No. No way. If Zhou Xian came, it would be easy for the main courtyard to discover his identity. Moreover, she wasn't someone who liked to place her hopes on others. She had to resolve the crisis before Zhou Xian rushed over. Just as Yiqing Luo was pondering, she suddenly felt an oppressive pressure coming from her back. Yiqing Luo felt a chill down her spine as she felt a sharp pain in her head. She quickly regained her senses and patted Chi-Chi's fur. Chi-Chi leaped up and dashed towards the other side of the tunnel, avoiding the attack from behind. Yiqing Luo turned her head and saw Wolf Saint Magic, who was chasing after her under the Thunder Crash arts. Wolf Saint Magic wasn't affected by the Thunder Crash arts. Only the cloak on his body had been torn to shreds by the Thunder Crash arts. The cloak covering his head had also been torn into pieces. He looked extremely disheveled. Yiqing Luo finally saw Wolf Saint Magic's face clearly. That was a 40-over-year-old middle-aged man. His facial features were dignified, emitting a chilly aura. Especially that pair of sinister venomous eyes. Just one look and one's heart would tremble. Little girl. Wolf Shengfa's voice was filled with thick murderous intent and anger. You are the first person who has dared to put me in such a difficult position. He laughed coldly in a low voice. His tall and slender body trembled with laughter. The imposing manner became increasingly majestic, almost oppressing Yiqing Luo, as if 1,000 catty boulder was pressing down on her shoulders. Her heart was trembling and her eyes were filled with disbelief. The thunderclap incantation was actually unable to cause any damage to him. This was the reward for clearing the second floor of the Purgatory Tower. At the same time that she was training the students of the Devil class, she did not forget to enter the Spiritual Energy Treasure Ground and enter the Azure Dew Bracelet. Under Old Man Song's guidance, she stabilized her profound level and increased her strength. Of course, he did not forget to challenge the second floor of the Purgatory Tower. The reward for the second level was the Thunderclap incantation. Although she had just started practicing, she could only release an electric ball the size of a fist. But Old Man Song had said it before. Even if it was just a small electric ball, if it were to smash onto a profound practitioner of the Earth Profound Realm, it would definitely cause that profound practitioner to be unable to move for 3 days. But for the Wolf Saint technique, it only tore his cloak and didn't even leave any external injuries on his body. This Wolf Saint technique, just how powerful was he? Wolf Saint technique looked at the astonished young master as he gave a cold smile. Following that, his palm wind moved. That palm wind turned into a raging hurricane, bringing along a strong air wave as it swept across. The entire tunnel started to shake. Chapter 1094. Yiqing Luo was pressured by that burst of energy and her body became unstable as she tumbled down from Chi-Chi's back. Before she could react, Wolf Saint Magic's figure had already enlarged in front of her. His motive? It was to force her and Chi-Chi to separate. Chi-Chi was a sacred beast and its speed was unparalleled. But she was an earth profound 4th-grade cultivator. Even if she possessed the so-called strange footwork, Wolf Saint Magic was confident that he could find her flaw. Wolf Saint Magic indeed had this thought. Among all the martial arts in the world, only speed could not be defeated. Then, his speed, was it faster than hers? Howl, howl. Chi-Chi saw its own master being approached by the enemy. It immediately pounced over, trying to tear Wolf Saint magic into pieces. However, the moment it pounced in the direction of the Wolf Saint technique, it suddenly stopped. Wolf Saint magic didn't turn back but raised his palm. Instantly, a white fluorescent light shot out. Chi-Chi's huge tiger body suddenly froze in midair. Its claws and head seemed to have collided with something. Immediately, that transparent barrier was faintly discernible. Barrier. Another barrier. Chi-Chi howled a few times as it gathered all its strength and charged towards Wolf Saint Magic's direction. But every time they charged, they would crash into the barrier. Even the sacred beast's sharp claws were unable to break the barrier. No wonder. Wolf Saint Magic dared to kill all the black-robed protectors after arriving at the underground tunnel. He didn't need to worry about the sacred beast White Tiger, nor the existence of the divine dragon, because his barrier could completely restrain the sacred beast or the divine dragon. Even if the sacred beast or the divine dragon could break the barrier in the end, there was no harm. Before the barrier was broken, Wolf Saint Magic could totally toy with Yiqing Luo in the palm of his hand. Yiqing Luo only felt her entire body turning cold as her back pressed against the uneven wall. Her charming eyes were fixated on Wolf Saint Magic. The glower flame fan in her hand was ready to strike. Wolf Saint Magic closed in on her 2 steps away. Stopping and looking at her. Scared? Yiqing Luo kept silent. Wolf Saint Magic laughed instead of getting angry. His eyes were filled with interest. To teach a proud and unyielding lass to such a fearful degree, this Saint Magic feels carefree. His aggressive gaze made her feel nauseous. It wasn't a look of interest. Instead, it was the kind of twisted expression one would feel when one saw one's prey struggling in one's hands, yet unable to escape from one's grasp. He moved closer to her and pressed his lips against her ear. A cold and frosty aura sprayed on her skin. This made Yiqing Luo feel even more disgusted. Disgusting goosebumps appeared all over his body. The Wolf Saint Law noticed this and deliberately stretched out his finger to stroke the goosebumps on her neck. He chuckled. So sensitive. Do you hate the Saint Law that much? His voice became deeper and deeper. The middle-aged man's aura carried a bone-chilling coldness. Yiqing Luo's scalp went numb as she endured the disgust and turned her head away. The gourd flame fan in his hand had already been infused with profound energy, ready to find a suitable opportunity to strike him in one blow. But he heard a cold voice with a smile in his ear. Who taught you the thunderclap incantation? Thunderclap arts? Yiqing Luo's eyes sunk. Why did he suddenly ask about the thunderclap incantation? Could it be, is the thundercrash art the same as teleportation? After using it, people will immediately recognize me? Then what was the reward she had obtained after going through so many hardships in the Purgatory Tower? Chapter 1095. Pooh. Yiqing Luo spat impatiently. Playing with words in front of her? She had played this trick countless of times. Could he consider sparing her life? He only said he would consider, not sure. Even if he was sure, she might not believe it. Wolf Saint Magic wiped the saliva off his face. A murderous intent flashed past his eyes. But he still suppressed the anger in his heart and spat out. Who taught you the thunderclap incantation? Where is that person? Where is the secret to the thunderclap incantation? Leave it to me. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly. His 3 consecutive questions clearly expressed his desire for the thunderclap incantation. This might be the chance for her to delay the time and survive. As long as she had something he was interested in, he could not kill her. As though he had seen through her inner thoughts, Wolf Saint Magic's eyes turned hazy. Suddenly, his broad palm landed on Yiqing Luo's shoulder. 5 fingers exerted a little force. A burst of profound qi instantly scattered the crimson outfit she was wearing. The belt loosened and half of her indecent clothes were scattered, revealing her fair shoulder. Yiqing Luo panicked, her eyes widened in disbelief. How dare you? He actually wanted to use the most despicable means to force her to reveal the thunderclap incantation. It wouldn't take her life, but it was more unacceptable than killing her. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes were cold. Profound qi wrapped around the glower flame fan and flipped it swiftly in her palm. A wind blade went straight for Wolf Xianxia's neck. Wolf Saint Magic snorted lightly, waste of energy. With a light lift of his finger, he easily blocked the wind blade. Yiqing Luo took the opportunity to display her footwork and escaped from Wolf Saint Magic's restraint in a few steps. She speedily ran towards Chi-Chi's direction, condensing profound chi on her feather fan and drew out countless wind blades. The bewitching red glow was like a sharp blade, cutting on that transparent barrier. At the same time she silently called Chi-Chi's name, attempting to summon Chi-Chi back into the pet space. But no matter how the red sharp blades struck the barrier, it was still unable to move. The barrier was still firm and indestructible. He couldn't summon Chi-Chi back to the pet space either. A boundary was a space that separated the space within the boundary from the outside world. She wouldn't be able to summon her battle pets if they were in different parallel spaces. What was going on with this barrier? How could it be so strong? If even the people of the dark forces could create such a powerful barrier, they would be able to do so. Then there was no need for them to resist at all. The dark forces could just open up a barrier and attack the upper realm. Roar roar, Chi-Chi did not give up and tried to break free from the barrier. Yiqing Luo watched as Chi-Chi was bounced back by the enchantment again and again. The huge tiger head and tiger eyes were scarlet red and there were traces of blood dripping down along the white fur. Her heart tightened as she looked at Chi-Chi comfortingly. He signaled for it not to forcefully crash into the barrier for the time being. At this moment the wolf saint technique once again stuck close to him like a ghost. "Little lass, you haven't been impregnated yet, right?" Wolf saint technique sneered coldly as his gaze swept past her fair skin and his large palm directly touched it. "Either tell me the whereabouts of the thunderclap incantation or this saint technique will use. This saint technique's method to make you say it obediently." Yiqing Luo only felt a wave of disgust. Chapter 1096. The wolf sacred technique said disapprovingly, "It's very common for a man to have a few women outside. Protector who is an obedient woman, so she naturally understands this sacred technique's intentions." He raised his voice slightly when he said this. It was obvious that he had purposely told this to Yiqing Qian, who was not too far away. Yiqing Qian suppressed the fluster in her heart as she forced a gentle smile on her face. "Yes, I believe Wolf Saint Dharma has feelings for me. Even if Wolf Saint Dharma were to deal with you on the spot, it's merely to make you reveal the whereabouts of the thunderclap incantation." Not sure if he was trying to convince Yiqing Luo or himself. Yiqing Qian's voice had no confidence at all. Her eyelashes fluttered as she stared at the alluring Yiqing Luo, whose shoulders were half exposed. The more uneasy she felt. It was because she had taken the initiative to climb onto the sacred wolf technique's bed that she had gained the sacred wolf technique's favor. Could be said that the wolf saint was obsessed with her body. But if the wolf saint technique was also infatuated with Yiqing Luo's body and couldn't bear to kill her, then what should he do? The uneasiness in her heart made Yiqing Qian unable to witness wolf saint technique doing such a thing to Yiqing Luo in front of her. Just as Yiqing Luo and the wolf saint technique exchanged a few rounds, Yiqing Luo was suppressed by the wolf saint technique to the extent that she had no room to retaliate, and when she was pushed against the wall corner, Yiqing Qian finally couldn't hold it in any longer. She got up with Yiqing Ling's support and said eagerly, "Yiqing Luo, you'd better tell me everything that the wolf saint technique wants to know." At this moment, wolf saint technique's hand had already tugged open the crimson robe that Yiqing Luo was wearing. Hearing Yiqing Qian's words, his hands paused. Yiqing Luo vaguely discovered that in the eyes of wolf saint technique, a trace of joy flashed past. Joy? Yes, it was joy. He was not mistaken. Was the wolf saint Dharma rejoicing that Yiqing Qian had stopped his actions? This knowledge made Yiqing Luo's heart heavy. She heaved a sigh of relief when Yiqing Qian stopped the wolf saint technique's following actions. But at the same time it also gave her a lot of pressure. Although this was the first time he had seen the wolf saint technique. But Yiqing Luo was very clear that wolf saint Fa's character was absolutely arrogant and disobedient. Even if it was the King of Darkness, he wouldn't necessarily listen to orders. However, he was still able to sit firmly on the position of holy technique in the dark forces. It must have something to do with his powerful strength. Yiqing Luo had a deep understanding of his power in the battle. Such an arrogant and despotic saint technique that did not play by the rules. Yiqing Qian's words could easily sway him. The joy in wolf saint magic's eyes was obviously because of Yiqing Qian's obstruction. He cared about him. She didn't want him to touch other women. Therefore he stopped what he was doing. Wolf Saint Dharma's concern towards Yiqing Qian indicated that he would kill himself for her. Even if he had to destroy the King of Darkness's plan, he would have to do so. even if he couldn't get the whereabouts of the thunderclap technique. As long as Xianxia opened her mouth, he would definitely take action. Yiqing really did not expect. This 40-over-year-old middle-aged man was a man who could be Xianxia's father. It was a bone-deep love for her. However, Xianxia didn't realize that she was afraid of losing Wolf Saint Fa's backing and had opened her mouth to stop him, which made Wolf Saint Fa mistakenly think that she was deeply in love with him. Yiqing racked her brains to dissuade Yiqing Luo. Don't you still have the Overlord? Don't you want to be chaste for His Majesty? Emotion. Chapter 1097. She would not let the Holy Wolf technique succeed. Even if he were to die, he would never let the Wolf Saint technique taint her body. She couldn't tell him the thunderclap spell either. Otherwise it would implicate Old Man Tsung. The matter of the Azure Dew bracelet would also be known to the people of Nirvana realm. He saw Yiqing Luo had an obvious reaction when she heard Dmo Xian's name. Yiqing continued, no one can stop Wolf Saint Magic's decision, not even his lordship. For the sake of our sisterhood, I will give you this piece of advice. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips. Seeing that Wolf Saint Fa had already let go of her shoulder, his gaze fell onto Yiqing without blinking. She immediately tightened her clothes. For Yiqing's sake, Wolf Saint Dharma should not make a move on her for the time being. He thought that Yiqing was jealous. If he really loved Yiqing, he would definitely not make a move on her at this moment. The Wolf Saint Law wanted to know the whereabouts of the thunderclap incantation, so for the time being he wouldn't take her life. And with Yiqing around, he had no way to use such despicable methods to force her to say it out. Then, he would definitely bring her out of the tunnel and into his territory. As long as there was a chance to leave the barrier, it should be no problem for him to teleport away with Chi-Chi. As expected, seeing Yiqing using her emotions and reasoning to persuade Yiqing Luo to reveal the whereabouts of the thunderclap incantation, Wolf Saint technique could no longer suppress the ecstasy in his heart. He laughed heartily. He didn't bother about Yiqing Luo's side. To him, pinching Yiqing Luo to death was as easy as pinching an ant. Yiqing's face turned pale when she saw him rushing towards her. She thought that he was blaming her for ruining his plans. However, after the Wolf Saint technique approached her, he reached out and wrapped his arms around her soft body, burying his head in her neck. The middle-aged man in his 40s smiled like a young man who just had his first awakening of love. That hearty laughter was something that Yiqing had never heard in these few days that she had been accompanying him. Wolf Saint Dharma didn't care about Yiqing Ling beside him. He didn't bother about Yiqing Luo, who was stuck to the corner of the wall, thinking of ways to escape. He directly clasped her lower jaw and kissed her on the lips. Strong and domineering. Fervent and unrestrained. Instantly the style became fiery hot. Not far away, Yiqing Luo could hear Yiqing panting from being kissed, or moaning from the Wolf Saint technique. Yiqing Ling blushed as she listened and moved aside awkwardly. Yiqing Luo was expressionless as her thoughts were all on how to escape from the tunnel. In any case, the Wolf Saint technique would never be interested in performing a live broadcast. So be it kissing and touching. Once he was aroused, the Wolf Sacred technique would naturally want to leave the tunnel in a hurry. At that time she could seize the opportunity to escape. About the time it took to burn half a stick of incense, the Wolf Saint technique's blood was already surging. He couldn't wait to do Yiqing on the spot. Yiqing's clothes were also in a mess. Her clothes hung loosely on her body. She looked extremely flirtatious. Wolf Saint Dharma pulled Yiqing into his arms, his eyes filled with longing. Immediately he carried Yiqing and was about to leave the tunnel. Yiqing was still rational. Her little hand grabbed the front of Wolf Saint technique's clothes and reminded in a sweet voice, "Wolf Saint technique. Yiqing Luo is still here. She is very cunning." Her voice paused as she sensed the burning hot body that was sticking close to her stiffened. Yiqing reacted and realized that she was still calling Yiqing Luo's name under such circumstances. Her motive was too obvious. Chapter 1098. Wolf Saint Magic rubbed Yiqing's head. She didn't know if he believed her words or not. He turned around and walked towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Luo forced herself to calm down. Everything was going according to her expectations. As long as the enchantment was released and she left this tunnel, she would be able to escape. Devil classes students were still waiting for her. The competition was still waiting for her. She must rush back. She must not let her brother fight alone. The oppressive pressure covered the sky and covered the earth. Wolf Saint Magic's huge palm directly clasped her head. The pain made her head feel like it was about to split open. In a blur, she heard Wolf Saint Magic's cold sneer. Other than Lord, there is no one else who can escape from this Saint Magic. He was a sly old fox. How could he not see through Yi Qing Luo's plan? Trying to escape? He wanted to see how she was going to escape after he knocked her out and brought her away. Yi Qing Luo clenched her teeth as blood oozed out from her lips. But she still couldn't withstand the attack of the pain, causing her consciousness to be in a mess. Her eyes gradually turned blurry. Bam! A loud sound was aimed at Yi Qing Luo's head. Wolf Saint Magic, who wanted to knock her out, suddenly hugged the disheveled lady in his arms and quickly retreated. A burst of majestic profound qi, like a raging wave, covered the sky and attacked Wolf Saint Magic. The entire tunnel's ground started to crack as gravel flew everywhere. Wolf Saint Magic dodged in a panic, carrying another person in his arms. After retreating out of the attack range, he staggered and almost fell to the ground. The hurricane dispersed, revealing a tall and slender figure. A blood-red robe like a burning flame. Wolf Saint Magic frowned as he looked in shock at the man who walked into the tunnel. His expression suddenly changed. It's actually you. Losing the support of Wolf Saint Magic, Yi Qing Luo's entire body went limp as she fell backwards weakly. Vaguely, she felt a powerful energy force that forced the Wolf Saint technique away. Following that, her body was brought into a warm embrace. A refreshing and serene aura lingered in the air. Her tensed nerves, tensed-up petite body finally relaxed slowly. Her head rested in his arms. There was a faint smile at the corner of her eyes, showing that she was at ease. "Ah Xian, you're here." Her Ah Xian still rushed over. Just when she thought she was really going to be taken away by the Holy Wolf technique, it appeared in front of her like a god. Her Ah Xian was here. They would definitely be able to leave safely, because Ah Xian was her god. The man who was hugging her froze when he heard her mumble his name. His handsome brows furrowed slightly, showing some impatience. "I never thought that the dignified Death God Castle's castle master would actually come to such a small place." Wolf Saint Fa recognized the man in front of him at first glance. To be able to wear such a demonic and enchanting blood-red brocade robe in such a cold and noble manner. A man who was always expressionless, like an iceberg. There was only one Death God Castle Lord, Zhou Xian. Could it be that this lofty and unyielding young lass is your woman? Wolf Saint Technique squinted his eagle eyes as he looked at Zhou Xian, who was hugging Yi Qing Luo's waist tightly. Zhou Xian didn't reply. He only lowered his eyelids silently, looking at the messy clothes in his arms. Her ears were forced to bleed by Wolf Saint Technique's strong profound qi pressure. His dark and gloomy eyes were gradually covered with a layer of frost. "You hurt her." 4 indifferent words, but it was filled with an extremely cold chill. Chapter 1099. Zhou Xian didn't look at the lady in Wolf Saint Dharma's arms. He pursed his thin lips as his indifferent eyes were filled with chilly emotions. Silently, a powerful aura was emitted from his body. Wolf Saint Dharma's expression changed. "You want to fight with me?" Zhou Xian ignored his shock and astonishment as he changed his posture and held Yi Qing Luo in his arms. He used his own actions to answer Wolf Saint Dharma. His blood-red robe fluttered like a huge red dragon, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. A ray of profound light erupted from his body as it lingered in his palm. Without hesitation, it struck towards Wolf Saint Dharma's face. This aura was extremely pressurizing. Wolf Saint Dharma avoided it but still didn't retaliate. Only his eagle eyes were deep as he fixed his gaze on Zhou Xian. "Are you serious? Whoever hurts her will be an eternal enemy." Spitting out these few words indifferently, Zhou Xian's palm continued to move and the entire tunnel instantly fell into a never-ending hurricane profound light. That intense pressure made Yi Qing Luo's spirit root unable to stand still. Her entire body was swept up by that hurricane and fiercely smashed against the uneven wall. Wolf Saint Dharma protected the screaming person in his arms as he opened up his profound qi to form a semicircle barrier in front of him. It blocked the raging hurricane and Xianxia outside. Although Yi Qing Qian's profound grade had been transformed by the profound yin qi and had already advanced to the earth profound grade. But this body's innate talent was still stuck at the profound grade. At this moment, Zhu Wuxia didn't show any mercy as his powerful and majestic force enveloped the entire tunnel. Xianxia couldn't withstand this kind of pressure at all. Immediately a mouthful of blood was sprayed onto Wolf Saint Dharma, splattering his entire face with blood. Xianxia's face turned pale as she trembled to help him wipe his face and opened her mouth to apologize. But the current her didn't even have the strength to open her mouth. That powerful airwave constantly squeezed her 5 viscera and 6 bowels. She didn't have any strength to move at all. Not to mention raising her hand to help him wipe his face. Wolf Saint Dharma held her little hand and a gentle burst of profound energy was injected into her body. It protected her heart meridians to prevent it from being shattered by Zhu Wuxia. Zhu Wuxian's actions angered the wolf's sacred technique. His eagle eyes were deep and his face was filled with anger. Death God Castle's Castle Master, are you declaring war on me? Yes. His answer was straightforward and decisive without any hesitation. His indifferent eyes were devoid of emotion. He was clearly doing something extremely heartwarming. However, she couldn't sense any emotion from him. Even when he looked at the girl in his arms, the coldness in his eyes did not fade. This made the Wolf Saint technique a little confused as to what Zhu Wuxian was thinking. Wolf Saint technique listened to his unhesitant reply and instead fell into deep thought. Making an enemy out of Zhu Wuxia in this situation was extremely unwise. Where exactly did this Zhu Wuxian come from? Even his lord had no way of knowing. He only knew that this man who had mysteriously become the castle master of Death God Castle. His strength was not inferior to the master of the imperial palace, Dizun. Compared to the Death God Castle's castle master, he had a powerful and mysterious background. However, no one knew his true identity. Even his lordship was willing to cooperate with Zhu Wuxian. If he really became enemies with Zhu Wuxia, the collaboration between the Dark Forces and Death God Castle, it was definitely impossible. Chapter 1100. After Yiqing Luo rested for a moment, her thoughts gradually cleared up. In his days he seemed to have heard the Holy Wolf Technique's words. She couldn't help but frown slightly. She tried to open her eyes, which were still a little heavy. She wanted to focus and listen to what they were talking about. The Dark Forces had sent an invitation to Zhou Xian? Did the Dark Forces want to cooperate with the Imperial Palace? What ambition did Zhou Xian have? Does he want to be like the Dark Forces and unify the Nirvana realm? No, that's impossible. This thought had just flashed past her mind and was immediately denied by Yiqing Luo. If Zhou Xian wanted to unify the Nirvana realm, it would be a piece of cake. Of course, the premise was that the people from the upper realm would not intervene in this matter. However, it was only her personal feeling. Zhou Xian did not have the ambition to unify the Nirvana realm. Otherwise, how could he have abandoned the matters of the Imperial Palace and wandered around her? A truly ambitious person would not be like this. Suddenly, a cold voice floated over his head. If you hurt her, the cooperation is invalid. This voice was not Zhou Xian's voice. But the familiarity made her body stiffen. Immediately, the splitting headache and heaviness in his eyelids disappeared. This was Zhu Wuxian. The embrace she snuggled into was Zhu Wuxian's embrace. This person was not Zhou Xian. Yiqing Luo suddenly stretched out her hand as she pushed Zhu Wuxian's chest. Let go of me. However, Zhu Wuxian hugged her even tighter, almost as if he wanted to knead her whole body into his. He did not speak. But the action made Yiqing Luo furious. His struggling movements became more and more ferocious. Wolf Xianxia, who was standing not too far away, curled his lips in disdain when he saw this. Castle Lord of Death God Castle, you've done so much for her, but this little girl doesn't appreciate it at all. Zhu Wuxian, who had been expressionless, suddenly raised his head. His calm and emotionless eyes now revealed a biting cold killing intent. It seemed to be warning the Wolf Saint to shut up. Wolf Saint technique was stunned by her gaze as he stared at the struggling Yiqing Luo for some time. Suddenly he laughed out loud. Indeed, the word love was the greatest calamity in the world. No matter how strong a man was, he had to submit to the word love. Unexpectedly, Zhu Wuxian, who had always been cold and arrogant, was so arrogant. He was actually willing to sacrifice himself for a woman without asking for anything in return. At this moment, Yiqing Luo's hand was grabbing onto Zhu Wuxian's collar while the other hand was pressing against his chest, as she bellowed in an evil tone. Zhu Wuxian, let me go. Where are your hands touching? Take it away. She didn't notice the holy wolf technique's words at all. Zhu Wuxian seemed to have lost his patience and loosened his grip slightly. Just as Yiqing Luo was about to escape from his embrace, she heard a cold voice ringing beside her ear. If you don't want others to see your body, don't move. Yiqing Luo was stunned. This voice sent a chill down her spine. Then he came to a realization. She lowered her head and looked at her messy clothes. His clothes, which had been shaken off by the wolf saint technique, were already scattered around his waist. Her thin undergarments revealed half of her shoulders, revealing a small pocket embroidered with cherry blossoms. In the process of struggling, it became more and more scattered. Zhu Wuxian hugged her tightly, but it was only to cover her exposed skin. Yiqing Luo gave an "ah" as her face instantly flushed red. She let go of Zhu Wuxian's collar and speedily pulled up the loose clothes around her waist, pulling it over her body. Just at this moment, the Holy Wolf technique took the opportunity when Zhu Wuxian had no time to care about himself to bring Yiqing Luo away. Zhu Wuxian's gaze turned cold as he raised his palm to create a hurricane, blocking the Holy Wolf technique's path. Because of this action, Yiqing Luo's undergarments scattered even further. She instinctively leaned into Zhu Wuxian's embrace, using this to block the exposed spring scenery. Chapter 1101. Brother D, the barrier has been unlocked. A clear and melodious voice that sounded like a silver bell rang out from outside the tunnel. Wolf Saint Law, who was about to rush out of the tunnel, was blocked by Zhu Wuxian's hurricane. He turned to the side to avoid the hurricane but bumped into a soft body. "Ah!" The melodious voice cried out in pain as she fell to the side. A strong and powerful arm gently supported that lady. It was just a casual support, and after she stood firm, he retracted his hand. However, that lady took the opportunity and directly snuggled into that arm, hugging his waist tightly, not willing to let go. Wolf Saint Law was stunned. When he saw the tunnel entrance and the person who walked in, his expression was filled with shock. The person who walked in was dressed in a purple luxurious robe. Because of the hurricane, his sleeves fluttered in the wind, creating a stream of light. A head of black hair, not tied up or tied, casually scattered over his shoulders. He looked extremely casual and extremely lazy. What was even more breathtaking was that peerless face of his. His long and narrow demonic peach blossom eyes seemed to bear all the splendor of the world, sparkling with an intoxicating luster. However, there was a hint of chilliness in his eyes. Overlord. Wolf Saint Law recognized the man who was known as a legend in Nirvana realm at one glance. He hugged Yiqing Qian and retreated a few steps as he looked at Dmo Xian vigilantly. He had heard about Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo's relationship from Yiqing Qian. One was Zhu Wuxian, and the other was Dmo Xian. A little girl had actually attracted the attention of two great experts, and both of them had gathered here. But the current situation was a little interesting. So interesting that he temporarily didn't want to bring Yiqing Qian away, and wanted to stay to watch the show. Yiqing Luo's hand, which was holding onto her robe, paused. She heard a lady's gentle voice. That voice was very familiar. It was the voice which had appeared several times in her dreams, making her heart surge with uneasiness. Subconsciously, she turned her head stiffly and looked towards the direction of the voice. He froze on the spot with this one look. Her body completely tensed up as her pupils dilated. At the entrance of the tunnel, the hurricane dispersed, revealing that peerless figure. Yiqing Luo's gaze met with that pair of chilly peach blossom eyes. It was like a bottomless pool. Dmo Xian, he came. He came with his own face. Not Senior Mo, but Dmo Xian. Brother D. Sensing the man beside her gradually turning cold, the woman tugged at Dmo Xian's sleeve as she called out softly. Yiqing Luo's vision then followed the voice and fixed onto that lady. Just one glance and Yiqing Luo felt as though she had been struck by lightning as she fell into a daze in Zhu Wuxian's arms. His mind was blank. His taut nerves began to crack one by one. Her mind was filled with the image of that woman. She didn't even notice that she was still in Zhu Wuxian's arms and had already forgotten about the wolf saint technique that was not far away. Nestled in Dmo Xian's arms. That jade-green figure had soft curves. She was curvy where she should be, curvy where she should be. Draped in a jade-colored soft muslin, she looked as elegant as a fairy. Her glossy black hair was tied into a unique bun, with an exquisite golden hairpin. That face was so beautiful that it could make one's soul swoon. Coupled with that gentle-looking, yet like a little dragon girl, cold and pure temperament. It made this lady look even more alluring. Her beauty was different from Yi Qingluo's ostentatious and enchanting beauty. Her beauty was extremely tranquil, making one feel pity for her.